The bullies knocked over a girl in a wheelchair. 30 minutes later, a brave girl defeated them in front of the whole school. It was a breezy Thursday morning at Westfield Middle School in Oak Ridge, Michigan. The sun rose steady and bright, casting long shadows over the worn asphalt of the parking lot where school buses groaned to a halt. Students poured out in a familiar rush, buzzing with conversations, clutching phones, backpacks slung low, and eyes scanning for their friends. It was the usual organized chaos of the first bell. But for 13-year-old Olivia Reed, the day didn't start with chatter or confidence. She sat quietly by the flagpole, watching as students moved around her like she was furniture. Olivia was small for her age, soft-spoken, and used to being overlooked until she wasn't. She was also one of only 3 students at Westfield who used a wheelchair. Born with spina bifida, Olivia had never known a life without wheels under her. But that never kept her from smiling. Her eyes were bright, her answers in class always thoughtful, and she had a laugh that could warm a room. Still, that didn't stop kids like Jackson Miller from treating her like she was less than. Jackson, 8th grade linebacker, tall, smug, and from a family whose name was etched into the school gym. Didn't like people who didn't fit the mold. He didn't say it out loud. He didn't have to. The jokes, the side eyes, the moments when he'd block her path in the hallway or mimic the squeak of her wheels in class that said enough. That morning, Olivia was trying to get into the school when it happened. She was just a few feet from the front ramp when Jackson and 2 of his sidekicks, Tyler and Ryan, stepped in front of her. They didn't speak at first. They just stood, arms folded, looking down with sneers like they were staring at something broken. Tyler reached out and flicked the rim of her wheelchair. "You ever think about installing nitro boosters on this thing?" he asked, laughing. Olivia's fingers gripped the wheels. "Come on," Jackson said, stepping forward. "Let's clear a path." But instead of stepping aside, he bent down and grabbed the front of her chair. In one motion, he tilted it backward just enough to send her flailing. Olivia's arms shot out trying to brace herself as the chair teetered and fell. She landed on her side with a thud that seemed to pause the whole front entrance. For a second, the world held its breath. Then came the laughter. A few kids covered their mouths. Others looked away, uncomfortable. But no one moved. Olivia lay still, her backpack half off her shoulder, books scattered. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just stared at the sky and whispered something to herself that only she could hear. That was when someone did move. Zara Johnson had just stepped off bus 12. She saw the tail end of it fall, the laughter, and Jackson's stupid grin as he high-fived Ryan. Her fists clenched, and before she even realized it, she was pushing through the crowd. Zara wasn't loud. She wasn't a class president or a straight-A student. But she had something else, a quiet fire that people only noticed when it started burning. She knelt beside Olivia, helped her sit up, and checked her elbow. "You okay?" Olivia nodded once, her lips pressed tight. Zara looked up. Hey, her voice cracked through the silence like thunder. "You think that's funny?" Jackson turned. "Mind your business." Zara stood slowly, straightening to her full height. "Not tall, but enough. It is my business." The crowd started to shift now, students gathering like moths to a flame. Jackson smirked. "What, you going to lecture me? What are you, her babysitter?" Zara didn't answer. She stepped forward, reached down, and helped Olivia back into her chair. The hallway monitor on duty finally jogged over, late as always, asking what had happened. But no one said a word. The boys melted into the crowd, and the scene ended not with resolution, but with tension thick as smoke. But the story wasn't over. What Jackson and the others didn't know was that the school's annual Unity Challenge event was scheduled for later that day. It was part of a statewide initiative to promote inclusion, with a field of team-building games and activities designed to bring students together. Everyone would be watching: students, teachers, even parents. That's when Zara got an idea. During homeroom, she walked up to Ms. Bennett and said, "I want to compete this afternoon. I want Jackson on my team, Ms." Bennett blinked. "You sure about that?" Zara nodded. "Positive." By noon, the heat had risen, and the field behind the school buzzed with excitement. Teachers set up cones, relay stations, and obstacle courses. The Unity Challenge kicked off with loud music and school spirit. Names were drawn for teams, but Zara had arranged hers carefully, enlisting help from Coach Martinez to pull strings. Jackson, Tyler, and Ryan stood in matching red shirts, arms crossed, already bored. Then they saw who their team leader was. Zara stepped out, cool and collected, clipboard in hand. She looked straight at Jackson. "Today's challenge is about cooperation," she said. "But let's make it interesting. Final event, obstacle relay. Winner gets to choose someone for the principal's leadership lunch next week. Losers clean the cafeteria for a week." Jackson's eyes narrowed. "Deal," he said. 30 minutes later, the obstacle relay began. Each team had to complete a course that included sprinting, climbing, balance beams, and one twist. The final leg was a wheelchair push, with the student in the chair holding a baton. Jackson scoffed when he saw it. "Seriously," Zara smiled. "You're pushing her." He blinked. "What?" She nodded toward the side of the field. Olivia, wearing a navy blue t-shirt, bruised elbow bandaged, expression calm but unreadable. Olivia rolled herself to the final station. Jackson gritted his teeth. "She can't, she's the final runner," Zara cut in. "Rules say one teammate has to ride, the other has to push. Let's go." The crowd stirred. Teachers leaned in. Coach Martinez blew the whistle. The relay took off. Jackson, fueled by something between ego and confusion, ran his leg like his pride depended on it. He tagged Zara, who tagged Ryan, and finally, they reached the wheelchair station. Jackson jogged up, panting, eyes darting. Olivia waited. He grabbed the handles, muttering under his breath, and began to push. But the course wasn't smooth. There were cones, bumps, uneven turf. At one point, Olivia calmly leaned left. "Slow down. You're tipping the chair." Jackson adjusted. The crowd watched in near silence. Then came the final stretch. Zara and the others cheered. "Let's go." Olivia lifted the baton and held it high as they crossed the finish line. They won. For a split second, silence blanketed the field. Then came the applause, first from the teachers, then the students. It wasn't raucous or forced. It was genuine. Even some of Jackson's own teammates stared at Olivia with new eyes. She didn't smile, didn't wave. She just sat there, her chest rising and falling, gripping the baton like a torch. Her eyes forward and clear. Jackson stood behind her, hands on the wheelchair grips, too stunned to say anything. For the first time since that morning, he wasn't smirking. He was quiet, humbled, and maybe even ashamed. Later that afternoon, back in the hallway where the fall had happened, Zara called a meeting with Ms. Bennett and Principal Morales. She wasn't trying to get Jackson suspended. That would be easy and pointless. What she wanted was harder. She wanted change. "People saw what happened," she said, standing in the office. "They saw a girl get knocked over, and nobody did anything. Nobody spoke up. That's what needs fixing." Principal Morales, a stocky, graying man who had worked at Westfield for nearly 2 decades, leaned forward, listening carefully. "What do you propose, Ms. Johnson?" Zara exhaled slowly. "Give us 10 minutes at tomorrow's assembly. Let Olivia and I speak. Let us show them what it means to stand for someone else." The next morning, the school filed into the gym for the monthly character counts assembly. It was the usual routine: announcements, student of the month, a speech from a teacher. Most kids barely listened. But then Principal Morales took the mic and cleared his throat. "Before we wrap up, do students have something they'd like to share?" A murmur ran through the bleachers. Zara and Olivia rolled out onto the court together. A hush fell. Olivia parked her chair near the center. Zara stood beside her, the microphone in hand. "Most of you saw what happened yesterday," Zara began, her voice steady. "Some of you laughed, some looked away, and some of you just didn't care. But here's the thing: Olivia didn't fall because she's in a wheelchair. She fell because someone thought it was okay to make her feel small." The room was dead quiet. Even the teachers looked tense, uncertain of where this was going. "We talk a lot about inclusion here," she continued. "We hang posters about kindness, but that doesn't mean much if we can't speak up when it counts." She glanced at Olivia, who took the mic next. "My name is Olivia Reed," she said softly, but the mic carried her words across the bleachers. I've been in a chair my whole life, and most days, I don't think about it. But yesterday, I was reminded of what some people still see when they look at me: weakness. A target, something to laugh at. Her voice cracked just slightly, but she kept going. But here's what they didn't see. They didn't see the miles I've pushed through physical therapy. They didn't see my mom, who works 2 jobs to pay for my braces and repairs. They didn't see the nights I spent learning how to get up by myself after a fall. She paused, her gaze sweeping the bleachers. What they saw was a girl in a chair. But what I want you to see now is a girl who got back up. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was thick with emotion. A few kids shifted in their seats. 1 or 2 clapped quietly. Then more joined in until nearly the whole gym was applauding, not out of pity, but respect. After the assembly, Jackson found himself walking alone through the hallway. He'd never been ignored at this school. Not once. But now, eyes followed him with something new. Not fear, not admiration, just recognition. Like the mask had fallen. He didn't see Zara until he turned the corner near the library. She was sitting with Olivia, the 2 of them laughing softly over a book. For a moment, he considered walking the other way, but instead, he walked up slowly. He started, scratching the back of his neck. I didn't mean for things to go that far. I was just messing around. I didn't think she'd. You didn't think. Zara didn't blink. That's the only part of that sentence that matters. Jackson opened his mouth, then closed it. He turned to Olivia. I'm sorry. For real. I was being a jerk. Olivia looked up at him, her face unreadable. I forgive you, she said finally. But I don't need you to be sorry. I need you to do better. Jackson nodded awkwardly. Yeah, okay. He turned to leave, then paused. If you ever want help fixing that wheel, I'm pretty good with tools. Olivia gave a small shrug. We'll see. By the end of the week, something had shifted at Westfield. It wasn't magic. It wasn't overnight, but the hallway felt different. A few more students stopped to hold open doors for Olivia. More kids started joining Zara and Olivia at lunch. Teachers began weaving conversations about accessibility and inclusion into their classes. Principal Morales scheduled a new monthly forum called The Circle, a space where students could talk openly about what they faced, what they feared, and how the school could do better. Olivia and Zara were the first to speak at the inaugural meeting. Jackson showed up too. He didn't speak, not yet, but he listened. That spring, Westfield Middle School won a state award for inclusive programming. But to Olivia, the real award came quietly one morning in April when she wheeled into the lunchroom and found her favorite table already reserved with a small handmade sign taped to the chair. Reserved for Olivia and Co. She smiled, not because she needed a seat, but because finally, people saw her as more than a girl in a wheelchair. She was Olivia, and she had risen. Summer came early that year in Oak Ridge, the air thick with the scent of cut grass and honeysuckle, the heat rising off sidewalks in shimmering waves. Olivia's days became filled with year-end testing, class picnics, and preparations for the middle school's spring talent showcase, a beloved Westfield tradition where students from every grade displayed their creativity. There were always dancers, singers, comedians. But this year, something different stirred beneath the surface. The school wasn't just wrapping up a semester. It was closing a chapter. And at the heart of that change were 2 girls who had quietly, and without asking for permission, rewritten what strength looked like. Zara suggested they do something together for the showcase. Olivia hesitated at first. Performing on stage was something she'd never imagined herself doing. Not in front of the entire school. What would we even do? She asked one afternoon as they sat under the magnolia tree near the track field. Spoken word, Zara said. You write all the time. That poem you showed me about the sky that was fire. Olivia shook her head. That was just for me. Zara tilted her head. Maybe, but maybe someone else needs to hear it too. They spent 2 weeks after school in the library, crafting their piece. They wrote about being seen and unseen, about rolling down hallways while others walked by pretending not to notice. They wrote about voices that didn't yell but still shook walls. Zara brought rhythm, fire, movement. Olivia brought silence, grace, power. The day of the showcase arrived, and students packed the gymnasium in a blur of glitter, sneakers, and nervous energy. Parents sat along the back wall, many holding phones ready to record. Mr. Dawson, the drama teacher, adjusted the mic stand between acts, calling names like an MC at a county fair. When he said, "Next up, we've got Zara Johnson and Olivia Reed with an original spoken word performance," a ripple moved through the crowd. Zara stepped out first, eyes scanning the audience, lips tight with focus. Olivia wheeled behind her, back straight, hands folded in her lap. They positioned themselves center court, facing the crowd. Then Zara started, her voice clear and bold. "They told me quiet girls don't start revolutions. That silence was softness. That stillness was weakness. But I've seen storms in still water, and I've watched thunder roll in on wheels." Olivia picked up the thread without pause, her voice softer but no less commanding. "I've been invisible and unavoidable. I've been a punchline and a question mark. But now I am the period at the end of your assumptions." Their words laced back and forth, a call and response, a duet not of melody but of truth. The gym was silent, the kind of silence that felt earned, not for not a cough, not a phone buzz, just the echo of two girls taking up space fully, unapologetically. When it ended, there was no instant eruption, just a beat, a breath, then thunderous applause. Olivia's mother stood near the back, hands over her mouth, eyes brimming with pride. Even Principal Morales wiped the corner of his eye with his sleeve. Jackson, sitting with his younger brother near the bleachers, didn't clap right away. He just watched as Olivia wheeled off stage with Zara beside her. Both of them laughing, relaxed, whole. He turned to his brother, a sixth grader with the same square jaw and stubborn streak. "You see that?" His brother nodded. "That was cool." Jackson gave a slight nod. "Yeah, it was." The last week of school passed in a blur. Locker cleanouts, final grades, yearbooks filled with signatures and inside jokes. Jackson approached Olivia again in the library on the last day. "I heard you're going to Lincoln High next year," he said, hands in his pockets. She glanced up from her book. "Yeah, special ed programs better there." He nodded. "You're going to crush it." She didn't say thank you, just smiled. That was enough. Zara would stay at Westfield for 8th grade, and though they wouldn't see each other every day, the bond between them was set in stone. They made a pact: check in every Sunday, keep writing, keep pushing, and never let silence settle where truth belonged. Over the summer, Olivia and her mother took a road trip to Memphis, walking full-length same streets where others before them had marched. Her mother told her stories of her grandfather who had been part of the movement in '65. And how courage wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was a quiet girl in a wheelchair showing up day after day, refusing to shrink. Meanwhile, back in Oak Ridge, Principal Morales invited Zara to co-lead the first Student Diversity Council for the next school year. He said the school needed students with vision, with voice, and more importantly, with follow-through. Zara accepted. She had plans already, new equity initiatives, peer mentorships, making sure no one else slipped through the cracks the way Olivia almost had. When fall came, both schools felt different. At Lincoln High, Olivia quickly found herself welcomed into a poetry club where students used words like armor. She shared her spoken word piece at the first open mic. A junior with dyed green hair cried and hugged her after. "I needed that," the girl whispered. At Westfield, Zara led weekly student meetings in room 104. The group grew from 5 to 15 in a month. They hosted dialogue circles, conflict resolution workshops, and in the hallway above the lockers, the school put up a new mural designed by Zara, painted by art students. It showed two girls, one standing, one seated, both facing forward, eyes bold, unflinching. Above them in big block letters were the words, "Respect doesn't ask permission," no plaque, no dedication, just truth. Years later, long after the murals faded and lockers were replaced, the story lived on. Teachers would point to that hallway, telling new students that's where it started. The courage, the change, the choice to stand or sit tall. And every now and then, when someone asked what happened that one spring afternoon when a girl in a wheelchair was knocked down and another girl stood up, someone would answer, "That's when we all learned what real strength looks like." Because real strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it rolls, sometimes it waits, And sometimes when the world is watching, it rises together.